Ripple breaks the cross-border payment barrier. In the realm of cross-border payment solutions, a network without standardization is one of inefficiency and redundancy where everything is negotiated on bilateral basis or dictated by a central operator. If that sounds dramatic, revisit the email analogy. At the bare minimum, there is a constant sense of palpable discord. Let us see how Ripple is disrupting the cross-border payments globally.
Hey guys, welcome back to our channel, The Crypto King. Here you will get the latest cryptocurrency news, all investing information in crypto, and how to earn money from crypto. If you are new here, please like and subscribe to get everything you need to know about cryptocurrencies. Don't forget to click the bell icons so you get notified every time we upload a new video.
So, let's get started. What has been happening? In the realm of cross-border payment solutions, a network without standardization is one of inefficiency and redundancy where everything is negotiated on a bilateral basis or dictated by a central operator. If that sounds dramatic, revisit the email analogy. At the bare minimum, there's a constant sense of palpable discord. This is how we should think about the structure of cross-border payments. If we want to ensure that the process is efficient, fast, defined, and scalable, there simply must be a base-level data requirement. Unfortunately, there is no clear standard for cross-border payments, and its shortcomings have never been more evident. Historically speaking, there have been many different standards followed with various levels of consistency for cross-border payments. As a result, transactions that ought to be seamless and routine create friction and confusions due to incompatible and incomplete data formats. According to a speech made by the Bank of England on the CPMI building blocks and focus area of enhancing cross-border payments, 60% of payments require some sort of manual intervention, and this intervention can cost 20 to 30 times the cost of processing the payment itself. Even more fundamental is the actual definition of settlement finality. Without consistent standards, each institution on a network will maintain differing expectations, resulting in contractual complexities and disparate experiences across multiple partners. Simply put, global payment standards are fragmented. Correcting what should be typical network activity often requires manual intervention, thus introducing more complexity, more time added, and greater inefficiency and increased costs. At Ripple, however, we have identified and implemented the solution that our customers are taking advantage of today. What Ripple does differently. At Ripple, we are empowering our members to define the future direction of cross-border payments. The members of those RippleNet customers who sign on the membership agreement drive the evolution of the standards to ease the path to scaling and enhance the payment experience on RippleNet. When it comes to settlement finality and data standard practices and data requirements, that means clarity over interpretation, unity over differentiation, guidelines over guessworks. RippleNet was founded on consistency, transparency, and equality, and is proud to be progressing towards this next step in global interoperability. Consistency and transparency. The first step was to address the issue of settlement finality on a peer-to-peer network to ensure there was a consistent interpretation of data standards across the network. Paramount to achieving this is the ability to provide transparency and predictability to a party's obligation in a payment, specifically at the moment that obligation to make a payment transfer from one member to another. In turn, we designed multilateral framework for what would have previously been agreed upon on a bilateral basis. The second step was to address the widely varying data standards that can exist across a peer-to-peer network. The key is to enable each member of the freedom to operate per their jurisdictional requirements, while at the same time standardizing the data to bring predictability to the partnering process and consistent interoperability with domestic networks regardless of the origination and destination of payment. Through the formal governance structure and the support of Ripple, the members created standard for RippleNet, a minimum set of data that is required to be passed between members with clear guidelines on position, formatting, and purpose of the data. Access equality. All payment networks have a payment scheme. Effectively, that means each has its own definition of a governing rulebook. The scheme typically includes transaction implementation guidelines, operational processes, technical specifications, and numerous other member obligations. On the other side of the spectrum, there are many schemes that do not allow for any member input whatsoever. On the other hand, there are flimsy, inconsistent data standards that cause confusion across the network. However, RippleNet strikes the sweet spot. There is a single rulebook that members have equal ownership of, and to which members adhere. Even more importantly, this rulebook is governed by the members themselves. They have control. Further, the governance and participation model of RippleNet was designed to be inherently agnostic of institution type and location. RippleNet does not differentiate between banks and payment providers. Members have direct access and equal say in the rules for the network. These standards are underpinned by ISO 20022, which has steadily become the standards for the world's cross-border payment flows. In June of 2020, we proudly announced that Ripple became a member of the ISO 20022 Registration Management Group standards body and the first partner focused on distributed ledger technology. Participation allows Ripple to be the voice of our members beyond the ecosystem of RippleNet. This clear standardization of data allows the RippleNet network to minimize inefficiencies, redundancies, and overall confusion. For RippleNet customers, this simplifies the development and further reduces operational overheads. The world is converging on a new global standard and stepping into the future. As with any challenge yet to be explored, XRP can say for sure what is lies ahead. But they are excited to be leading the charge into the next era of cross-border payments, network interoperability, and blockchain technology application as a whole. Merits of using Ripple for cross-border payments. Simply put, Ripple is cheaper and faster and could also help crack down on money laundering. There's plenty of excitement around the way Ripple could transform cross-border payments as we know it, making cash transfers where workers in other countries send funds to their loved one much cheaper. Ripple can help reduce transactions costs by a big margin, and the advantages may not even end here. It can take around 3 to 5 business days for funds to get past old-fashioned wire networks, which is not great for someone who needs money in a hurry. But on particular blockchains, it is feasible for payments to be confirmed in a few seconds. Moreover, blockchain transactions can be rich in data. This means metadata can be transmitted from end to end. All this can help crack down on money laundering and terrorist financing, two concerning things for regulators. A crucial benefits that XRP deliver is unlocking access to financial services for the unbanked. According to research, 1.7 billion people worldwide do not have a bank account. There can be a number of reasons for this. Traditional banking and financial settlement systems have always been the most conservative and high-risk averse when dealing with new technologies and changes. Therefore, Ripple came at a better time to disrupt the status quo. We do hope you have enjoyed viewing our video. Let us meet tomorrow for more news on Crypto News. To be updated on our latest videos, kindly subscribe to our channel.